And your Detroit Lions in the 2023 regular season, 12-5, tied with the best record that they held back in 1991, the 91-92 season, I believe it was. And we did big things that year, but we are now in 2023, and the Lions finished strong. Again, have not lost 2 games in a row since October the 30th of 2022. So it's been more than an entire calendar year since the Detroit Lions have lost back-to-back games. And now, as we score watch to see what the final seeding is going to be, the Detroit Lions beat the Minnesota Vikings by a score of 20-10. Now, I was at that game, and it was fantastic. The atmosphere was electric. I just got one thing to say to Detroit Lions fans. If you plan to go down to Ford Field, do me a favor. When the offense is on the field, be quiet. It's insane. Ford Field should be ashamed of itself. Like, real talk. I went to SoFi. It was literally, you could hear a pin drop. Same thing in Minnesota Christmas Eve. You could hear a pin drop. Lions fans, you need to relax when your offense is on the field so they can communicate. But I gotta say, man, it was what a game. Every time Dan Skipper reported as eligible, the crowd cheered, and the referee made sure that he announced it very clear. And I saw that Dan Campbell said that, he was very clear, and he talked to him before the game, and that, it was tough. It was a tough position for the ref, that crew to be in because of what happened last week. But it was very clear, and every single time Dan Skipper reported as eligible, the crowd erupted. I have to say this: there's been a new priority list for me in the offseason. Priority number 1: extend Amon-Ra St. Brown, absolute dog. We'll talk about him a little later. Decide what you're going to do with Jared Goff. And before it was get an edge rusher. Now, this falls under the category of taking care of your own people. We need to bring C.J. Gardner-Johnson back. C.J. Gardner-Johnson was an absolute, the spark that this team needed, especially coming off that loss last week to the to the Dallas Cowboys. He comes out. We've got, they do the defense. So the defense comes out and they announce everybody. When he came out, the crowd was the loudest it had been. Like anybody else, and no offense to anybody else, but Iffy, Aiden, it was probably, Aiden was second to C.J. Gardner-Johnson, but the crowd absolutely erupted when he came out, and he had the crowd energized throughout the game, and he made some plays as well, particularly that one at the end to seal the game. But there was one, too, that he ran all the way from the right side of the field all the way to the left and made a tackle. And you could just see what this guy brings to the table. So he is my number 3 priority in that order. But let's look at some game stats, man. Hard to believe that the season is over just like that, and the Detroit Lions are 12-5. We should have been 13-4, but, it is what it is. The Detroit Lions had 19 first downs to 24 first downs, had 6 rushing to 5 for the Detroit Lions, and that was 6 for the Minnesota Vikings. First down from penalties, the Detroit Lions had 1. The Minnesota Vikings had 3. Third down efficiency, both teams sucked. They sucked today. It was kind of a miserable game all around. It was not very clean. It wasn't a very clean game on either side of the ball. Third down, the Minnesota Vikings went 12 for 13, and Detroit Lions converted 1 third down, but we converted both of our fourth down attempts. Minnesota went 2 for 3. Total plays, they had more by 14, 70 to 56. Total yards, 448 to 381. Total drives, both 11. Yards per play, 6.4 to 6.8. Passing, they had more passing, 359 to 311. Completions, Nick Mullins threw the ball 44 times to Jared Goff's 32. Yards per pass, 9.4 to 7.5 for the Minnesota Vikings. And he threw half the amount of interceptions he threw 2 weeks ago. Nick Mullins, that is, with 2 to Jared Goff. Another clean game from JG, and he threw no interceptions. We got to Nick Mullins 4 times. Aiden Hutchinson was responsible for one of those. They had one that was a tackle for a loss on, I think it was Justin Jefferson. What a great play by Hutch. But I don't know why they said it was a sack, and then they cleaned it up later. And Jared Goff was sacked 1 time for a loss of 9 yards. Rushing yards, we had a very quiet day. We had 70 to their 89, but David Montgomery did hit 1,000. We tried to get Jahmyr Gibbs there, but the Minnesota Viking defensive line was just not having it. We ran the ball 23 times to their 22. Yards per rush, we still managed 3 to their 4. We went 3 for 4 in the red zone. They went 1 for, or 0 for 1. Penalties, they had 8 to our 4 for 77 yards to our 20. And of course, the 2 turnovers by Nick Mullins. And they own time of possession by 10 minutes or so. Today was one of them games that, and shout out to my man JBL, supplied me with the ticket, man. It was a pleasure and an honor and a privilege sitting next to you, bro. And he was like, it feels like a preseason game. And it did have that vibe because we wanted to win. We knew what was at stake, but at the same time, we're waiting on Dallas to see what's going to happen there. And it's going to be tough to shake, especially with the outcome, how we finished the season 12-5. We could have been 13-4. And it's going to be tough, man, because the Giants are beating the absolute snot out of the Philadelphia Eagles. They have pulled their start. Well, Jalen Hurts has been pulled. A.J. Brown was hurt earlier, and they've pulled, I want to say, both of those guys. And I kind of knew the Giants were going to come play, but the Washington Commanders, who will fire their coach tomorrow, I'm checking the score right now, they were like our only hope. And it would be poetic justice if the Detroit Lions can squeak in, and that's not going to happen. It is now 28-10, Dallas over the Commanders. So it looks like we will remain that 3rd seed, and we're going to wind up playing Matthew Stafford next week. That's what it looks like is going to happen, even though that game right now is there's a way that they can fall to 7 and we can play the Green Bay Packers. So we're going to continue to score watch, but the Detroit Lions did very well today in a game that did mean something. Even though Sam Laporta was hurt near the end of the game, he got his broke a rookie record and then was hurt. It is a hyperextended knee and a bone bruise, which is way better than what it could have been. He will be out for some time. He probably won't even play in the playoffs. Like, the only thing I can see, honestly, is maybe the NFC title game or a Super Bowl. I don't see him coming back any sooner than that. But, 2 out of the 3 things done for this year for me. We finished 12-5, which means we went 4-3 out of our last 7. We started 8-2. So we needed to win the division, check. The way we started, we needed to finish 12-5, check. Now, if we win that playoff game, to me, it will be a successful year. Although I like what C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Cam Sutton said today, like, hey, we love this, but we ain't done yet. We not done. So I want to have the same mentality. We are not done. Let's not be done until we're done. You just see what I'm saying? So let's get it done. Shout out to everybody that was there taking pictures. Shout out to the guy too, man. It was an employee there. And he was like, Derek. It's like, what's up, man? I had on the prime times. And he was like, Derek. I was like, what's up, man? He's like, I watch you. And he had on he worked at Ford Field. It was like, I watch you all the time. And I was like, is it the glasses? He was like, no, man, I just could recognize you. So it felt real kind of cool to meet you guys and say what's up. And like I said, it was a privilege. The Lions are 4-0 in games I go to, and I will be there next week. So is that 5-0? 5-0. That might be where my journey ends. It really depends. But if we're the number 3 seed and Dallas gets that number 2, if they're not upset, if the Dallas Cowboys are not upset by the 7th seed, whoever it's going to be, right now it's between the Packers, Rams, Saints, and Seahawks. Those 4 teams are still involved. We could go back to Dallas. That's the one place I don't think I can afford to go because that ticket is going to be insane. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. You guys are awesome. Take care of yourself and each other. And as always, go Lions. It's been a good year thus far, but we ain't done yet.